We're back with AgXplore and another white paper review. This one's called Hidden in Plain Sight. I'm back with Dr. John Murphy, and what are we talking about here?
Yeah, hidden in plain sight. It's all about water quality. That's what it is. We see it when we think about our spray tanks. It's 95% of actually what we're putting on the field. But let's be real, how often do we think about it?
Right. Well, and most of the time, I think when people do think water quality, they're thinking what's running down the rivers, you know,
Yep.
going to town to drink. We had a show on that earlier this year, but specifically, we're talking about spray applications here
Yes.
and herbicide efficacy. Like you said, we're normally focused on what herbicide are we using,
Yeah.
what nozzle tips we're using, gallons per acre, what's the wind, what's the humidity.
Yep.
But 95% of that tank is water.
Yep.
So we can affect that hugely. Tell me about that. What are we seeing?
Yeah, and I love what you brought up because there's a lot of components that go into a really good herbicide program. And I would say when personally 75% of what I spend my time on is what is my tank chemistry.
Yep.
And then I think, all right, what's my heat and humidity? What do they add up to, right? If
Right.
we're thinking about Liberty. But let's be real, we have to think about what is happening in that tank because we fill it up with 975 gallons of water and then we put in 25 gallons of some active ingredient
Yep.
and we throw an adjuvant in. But what's really happening in the tank? And I always think, what happens if a rain kicks up and you don't get back in the field for 3 days?
Right.
What's happening in that tank? And that's what this is all about. It's about this small detail that I personally think can make a huge impact for us.
Okay. Well, let's take on hardness
Yep.
first. What the heck? Water's soft.
Yeah, I agree with you.
What is it?
Yep, my daughter said the same thing, right? So water hardness is all about these positively charged cations. I'm going to tell you, I'm not a chemistry person, but cations just means something that has a positive charge. Think calcium, right? That's our biggest one. It's Ca2+.
Okay.
And that's hardness. If you think about what's happening in our house, it's what leaves the white around the shower head. It's what leaves that white buildup in your dishwasher, right? Things
Yep.
like that. That's that hardness component.
And what is that doing? Was that negatively affecting our herbicide?
Yep. So let's think most of our common post-pass herbicides, almost all of them is what we call a weak acid. And a weak acid just simply means it has a negative charge to it. I always told people when I taught, when we think chemistry, opposites attract, right? We always joke about that with dating. Well, you have a positive calcium, you have a negative weak acid herbicide. Unfortunately, when you put them in the water together, they bind up and they actually form a salt and it will slowly fall out over time.
Okay.
And even if we don't see the salt, unfortunately, the plants don't uptake it very well. So now all of a sudden we're having a control issue on our weeds. And maybe we said, oh man, it has to be a herbicide issue or it was a timing issue. I think oftentimes we overlook our water quality.
So in our house, we'd put a water softener in and
Yep.
put salt in it, but we can't do that on us.
No, right.
Right.
We definitely don't want to do that.
So how is AgX handling hard water?
Yep. So when we think hard water, to me, it's all about AMS, ammonium sulfate. And this is why we use AMS. And it doesn't matter if you're using dry or you're using a liquid. Now, liquid, I will tell you, I think is easier, right? You don't have all the bags that we're cutting and dumping and trying to figure out where they go.
Yep.
But let's visualize what's going to happen. So you've gone out and you filled your nurse tank and we dump in our AMS. What happens to that ammonium sulfate when you put it in the water is it breaks apart. So I end up with NH4+, which is a fertilizer, and I end up with a negative sulfate, SO4-. Why is that a big deal? Now my calcium binds to my sulfate, and I have calcium sulfate. Now I put in my herbicide, and my herbicide doesn't get bound up by my hard water cations. Now it functions.
Okay. We will come back to that because I want to skip to pH now.
Yep, definitely.
And then we'll wrap them all into a whole
Yep.
under this white paper. So why is pH important?
Definitely. So pH is very similar to hardness, but I will tell you this, we do have to make sure we're handling it different. So when we think pH, let's kind of break it down. A pH of 7 is neutral. As we go to 8, it becomes alkaline, or we could call it basic. As we drop to a 6, it starts to become acidic. Now, you and I sit here and we're like, okay, a change from a 7 to a 6 seems really small. But pH is logarithmic, which just simply means it's a factor of 10. It's not 1, it's 10 times more acidic. And I think it's important we keep that in mind because it only takes a little bit to change it. Now let's, though, go back to our post-herbicides. The majority, not all of our post-herbicides are weak acids. So where are they going to function best? In a slightly acidic environment. And so if you think about most of those, what we see is that optimum range is somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5 of your water.
Okay.
So we want to pull that acid or that pH down. If you don't, and let's say your water pH is 8.2, which is really common number, just going to let you know. If we dump a weak acid in, it literally rips it apart. Big word called alkaline hydrolysis. All it means is it pulls apart my herbicide. Now my herbicide doesn't function.
Right. So us as farmers are getting our water to spray from many sources. It might be a city water hookup. It might be a well. And there's water quality differences all across the country. How do I know if my pH is wrong or my water's hard?
Yep. So I would tell you, give one of your AgX agronomists a call. We actually go around and we do personalized solutions. So if I were to come up and measure your pH and say it came out to 8.1 and your hardness was 350 milligrams as we're looking at it, we can actually come in and say you need exactly this much AMS and you need this much acidifier to put you in your sweet spot for your herbicides.
Okay. Now let's talk products. What AgX products are we looking at here to combat these issues?
Definitely. So any hardness is our AMS products. So that's going to be Combust. And Combust is kind of our premium. It's not just AMS. It also has some adjuvants built in there. On the other side of that, if you just want liquid AMS, it's Insider 2.0. And that is strictly 3.4 pounds of AMS per gallon. And so it is a straight AMS product, but instead of a bag, it's simply going to be pourable.
Yeah.
On the pH side, it's two products. It's Fuse, PHUSE, or it's Link, right? And both of those are going to be acidifiers and help us keep things in solution and keep them working.
Well, that's good. We'll dive more into this in depth in a whole episode, but for now, check out the white paper from AgXplore. Always learning, always improving, and helping you with your spray tank solutions.